what do you remember most about your time? Because we're talking about it, man. Time flies. I don't know when maybe you don't feel the same way, but 16, 17 is getting to a long time ago where it's, if you can believe it, it was year one of Austin Matthews in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, it was. It was a long time ago. It was interesting for me leaving a place that I was, not willing to leave. I didn't really want to go anywhere. It had nothing to do with Toronto. I didn't want to leave. I thought we had something good in Tampa, and they sort of proved that in the years that followed. But getting a chance to go up there and play was really exciting for me. Now, I just loved what they had in terms of skill and talent. I hadn't really seen that as much. I mean, Tampa had that too. My first training camp in Tampa, I was kind of blown away. But I had been so long with an organization that was relying on grit, and we did have talent. We did have, roles for guys that were supposed to score, but like we went to the cup final in 14, our leading scorer at 60 points. So it was much different. We relied heavily on Hank, obviously, but a structure that got us success. So having players on your team that can get you what I call easy goals, you're getting outplayed, you still can score a few, and you end up with a win. It was good and bad, really. I mean, we had I thought the structure that they were introduced to with Mike Babcock was going to be really good for them in the future. When he left, things sort of, I think, changed a little bit. Obviously, they had freedom to do more things, but they were a treat to be around. They really were, excited to be NHLers. They knew they belonged. Mitch, Willie, and Austin, and I thought they had a real good, I think, foundation for what was going to be a lot of success in the years to come.
So, Boyle, you talk about, having certain attributes on teams. I think it's no secret if you go too far one way and rely on pure grit, you probably don't have enough to get it done. If you go the other way, pure skill and pure talent, probably not enough to get it done in the playoffs. What are you seeing out of this Leafs team this year and some of the, the changes they've made at deadline to try to, round themselves off a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Edmondson's a great player to have. I think that's one way to do it. I think, Jay, that you can go a lot farther if you have enough guys bought in with the grit. I mean, you can make up for lost talent in a lot of different ways, but you need 20 guys committed to it. And that's just through experience. I mean, the game's changed a little bit since, 2017, but I don't know if it's changed that much in the playoffs. So getting to the playoffs might be a little bit more difficult if you build a team sort of with all third liners. But I mean, you saw it last year with Seattle. It's hard to sustain over year, but I mean, you've seen it with Carolina now that they've added some really good offensive players. They're going to be a really scary team this year because of 20 guys buy into a certain way to play hockey. So,
And Boiler, I think the fascination too is like the year you guys made the playoffs in 16, 17, there was like minimal pressure. And there will be a point in time in this interview where I want you to break down that behind the back pass to Kapanen and double OT, man. That was magic. But I think more so the fact that there was no pressure on that team. And now you flash forward 8 years later, it's like there's so much pressure. It's pretty crazy, eh?
yeah, I don't know. I think, well, I thought I felt pressure. It's a
Yeah.
playoff game. But it wasn't a negative thing. It was really like we get a chance to do something really awesome in a great city that is dying for it. And that's pressure, but it's how do you use that pressure? How do you kind of channel that into motivation? I remember my second year in Tampa, we got to the first round of the playoffs, and it was like game one of the playoff against Detroit, and we were sleeping. It wasn't like we're like, when's game 7? Like, when's the second round? When's the third round? Like that was, and we lost. It wasn't a good game. We ended up winning the series in 5, but you go through these things, and when your heart's pumping at the anthem and you're a little bit nervous. I mean, I found that I played better anyway. The teams played better. That pressure is something you can really use. That can be such a helpful tool to a team. And if it doesn't go your way enough times, you have to understand, like, it's up to you to change it. You can use it as a motivational tool. And, um, I think in Toronto, it's different. There's certain gotcha reporters. There's people that want to make their own little niche and claim on what they think they mean to the team. When reality, like, they report on the team. They have nothing to do with the team. And there's some reporters that probably don't know that, but that's all right. I mean, they're a big part of what we do. They're a big part of the fans coming and getting that voice or getting that information. I'm not dogging them, but players realize it's up to them. It's not, and whatever a reporter says has no bearing. I did it in New York. There was opinionated reporters there, and sometimes guys would get upset, and you just look, it's a big media market. They're trying to get their story put out there in whatever platform it is now. They have a job to do too. So, I mean, you can't really take anything personally. You're going to play. Is your coach happy? Are your teammates happy? That's the pressure you should put on yourself.
So being a guy that played as long as you did, Boiler, and on different organizations and whatnot, I know your time in Toronto wasn't all that lengthy, but what were some of the things you noticed that stood out to you that were different about being on the Maple Leafs, positive or negative?
I remember, I remember I got like whiplash in one game. I had to go to some university to get checked out to clear concussion protocol, which I did, but I was walking there and my wife was back in Tampa. I was on the phone with her and two different people came and like slapped me on the back. I was walking down a random sidewalk. Kind of spooked me. They're like, "Hey man, can we get a picture?" I'm like, "No, I'm on the phone with my wife. She's pregnant right now. I'm just dealing with something. I'm sorry, but thank you." Anywhere you went, it was all positive, really. They were just excited to see you. And I remember just playing in that building in the playoffs was something special. I mean, I grew up in Boston. I grew up with the Bruins. And as I played longer, I had more of an affinity for those original 6 teams and the history of the game. When I was a kid, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to make the NHL. But when I got there, I was kind of taking a look around and seeing what I was able to do and the teams that I was fortunate enough to play for. And I liked how, getting to play under Lou Lamoriello, kind of seeing what made him tick. He's obviously, he's been in the league for so long. He's had so much success, how he operated, being able to have conversations with him, having breakfast and Brendan Shanahan coming down and having a chat for 20 minutes was pretty awesome. But then seeing how those young guys practice, seeing how Austin Matthews practiced and Willie Nylander and what they did, and noticing how committed they were to their craft. And I don't know if people realize that even still. And Austin's having a hell of a season. So's Willie and Mitch as well. Like they're kids. Like at the time, they're kids like every other kid, but they're not. They're different. They're built different. Being able to see them every day, getting to know DJ Smith a little bit and Jimmy Hiller, those guys were kind of keeping me from going absolutely crazy because I wanted to do more for the team, but kind of the role I was in didn't really have me there. And Nazem Kadri, watching that guy play was a treat. I mean, that guy, I didn't see a guy battle that hard on both sides of the puck, but still have that much to do offensively. I couldn't believe what he was able to do for a guy that didn't really skate all that fast. He just was always in your jersey, always pissing people off. I tried to take a piece of that. It was a little later in my career, but watching him and how he kind of went about his business was remarkable. I never met anyone like him.
Man, hindsight's 2020, but some of the decisions, obviously, Hyman, I mean, we see what he's doing with Edmonton. You see Nas wins a Stanley Cup with Colorado now with the Calgary Flames. Like hindsight's 2020, but some of the players that have come out of this market, it's just a different animal playing in Toronto. And I like the fact that you brought up Lamoriello. I wanted to talk about that. Obviously, the maturation process, some of the younger players, now older veteran players, superstar players on this roster, but it would be great for you to paint a picture of what it's like being like a deadline addition, specifically to a team like the Maple Leafs. I mean, you lived it, and then being right thrust into the fire in the heat of things to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Can you paint a picture of what guys like Joel Edmondson are dealing with right now?
Yeah, they're coming into a team that has, its core. It's probably the same as it was. It's a lot the same. I mean, there's no Bozak, there's no Kadri, there's no Gardner, but they got those same, 3 guys. You got Tavares. I don't know how many guys he knows. I didn't really know anyone. I came in, and that's, for me, I've liked to stay places a long time now. The end of my career was different, as it is for a lot of guys, but like a loyalty to a team and staying and wanting to be a part of something through training camp is big. But it's hard when you get traded at deadline. It's different. So you got to understand that you got to be yourself. You can't be afraid to ruffle any feathers. They brought you in for a reason. But you want to see how everyone kind of operates. You don't want to screw any of the mojo up. You don't want to come in and, I don't know, just sort of put a chink in the armor. You want to just play well and kind of stay out of the way at first until you can kind of get more acclimated. It's an uncomfortable thing at first. Usually it doesn't take more than a couple days to get all your bearings. You play a couple road games, you play a couple home games, and then what's a practice day like, a game day, etc. And then you figure it out. You get your routine down, but it's not. It's everything's different. Everything changes, right? Where you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, what are they serving at pregame meal at home, what are they serving on the road, what time are the meetings, what time's the bus, all those different things. There's a comfortability there when you're at a place a long time, and when that changes, that can kind of screw up your whole day as a player, because with stuff like that, a lot of us are mental midgets.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, brother, about the playoff format, and if you like this wild card thing. I remember when they introduced it, I thought, well, that sets up to have some pretty big in division rivalries, which maybe it has. But on the other side of the coin, you look at someone in this Atlantic Division, and it's like it doesn't really matter what you do. You could squeak in, or you could finish second or third in the league, and you still kind of you're in that division. It's either like Boston, Florida, or Tampa, all powerhouses in the last handful of years. It's like it kind of doesn't really sets up to not really reward a good season in certain scenarios. What do you think about it? And if it should be changed, what do you think?
Yeah, I like 1-8. I really like 1-8, and that's how it should be. I think organically, if you get matchups in the final, in the conference finals, it's bigger. You get more eyeballs on it. I think the first round's, on the flip side of that, the first round's amazing. The first round is so much fun to watch. And then, for whatever reason, if your team's out, it doesn't matter. Like, it dips a little bit, not in terms of what's at stake, but what's, for the viewer. I think if you organically have, a Boston Toronto in the second or third round, I think that's more exciting. That's how it was going to be. That's how it, probably more in years past, but maybe not this year. We'll see. But it's like, take a look at the West, and 3 teams that I think could win the Stanley Cup might be done in the first round. It's
Exactly.
kind of, it'll make for a great first round, but I don't know. I think 1-8, you finish where you finish, and then you get the matchup you're supposed to get. And I like how they make divisional rivals happen. It's like they beat us in the playoffs, but it's like when Colorado and Detroit were facing off in the conference finals every year, in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's what I was watching. I remember that. It was the best. And I think you can talk to a lot of people. That was probably I fell in love with playoff hockey then in 1995, 96. And that's a long time ago, but that was kind of how they did it. And I think that's how they should do it.
Yeah, it's a lot different now. Even they're trying to force these rivalries on us too. Like, even if you recall when Vegas came in the league, they're like Arizona's going to be their rival, and it's like we all know that's not going to, and it didn't happen. And Arizona's a story for another day. But lastly, I just want to get your thought on this Maple Leafs team moving forward. I mean, the burn and the buzz in this market. It's been a long time since 1967. Do you like the Leafs' chances of doing something substantial this spring?
I don't know. I don't know if they got what they need in terms of depth. I think obviously they have the talent in the high end, but I think in a way, and I might get ripped apart for this, but I think they've been failed. Those top end guys, I think management's failed them a little bit. And what do you do? I mean, you want to lock those guys up. Yeah, I get it, but you have to build a team that has defined roles and guys that are good at their roles, right? And then you need to empower them in their roles. It's not like you're playing 2 lines for 50 minutes of the game, and then it's like, here's the scraps. You got to go do something with it. It's hard. It's really hard to do that as a bottom 6 guy. Most of my career, if not all my career, I had a role. I was a penalty killer. I was, defensively responsible. I got matchups against the Sedin line or, Thornton's line or whoever. It was like, that was my role. And I didn't have every single shift against them. I wasn't John Madden for the Devils, but it was like, I had a piece of that role. That was something that really helped me. We had that in New York when we went to the Cup finals. We had that even in Tampa to an extent. We had talented guys in Tampa we had to let go because they wanted to bring in, a couple bottom 6 or a 5-6 D. Like, everyone was kind of slotted where they had to be. And I think, Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, these guys and the young guys coming up are starting to, I think Nyes is going to have a great future. I think, Bertuzzi and Domi they've starting to get a little bit more of a role. They're going to have more of a chance, but you need that for an extended period of time, so you know what you're rolling with in the playoffs. And I just don't know how they're all slotted. I think there's, a couple of guys are looking over their shoulder if they're going to be in, if they're going to be out. Like, you want to know your role and kind of dive into that. And I don't know if they have it. Now, that being said, they have enough talent where they could obviously clamp down, figure out how to really defend. But I don't know. It's tough. There's so many really, Carolina's tough. Florida's tough. Those teams have roles. They have good players, but they're slotted in the right spots.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.